I'm so looking forward to sharing a little bit of what God's put on my heart, and I don't take it for granted. Brother Chuck said that in his prayer, that we don't take for granted that we can gather and have the presence of God, have the love of God in our hearts, and I don't take it for granted to have the opportunity to share what God puts on our mind and heart, and that you keep coming back, because if you're not here, then maybe it gets a little bit quiet. But there's been a lot going on in the world right now that's been very heavy. Even a couple conversations between the meeting about, in between Sunday school and the meeting, just of things that's going on in the world. And it seems like it's becoming more and more readily of violence in places that there shouldn't be, and individual stress and anxiety. And as I was going through this, some of you may have learned that I'm very good at going down a rabbit hole. It even happened in Sunday school. Brother Johnny had an amazing lesson, and one of the tangents was about the law and the law of Moses. But between Adam and the law of Moses, what was there? And next thing you know it, I'm down the rabbit hole researching and finding, okay, there was actually a covenant around the time of the rainbow that God made a moral foundation very similar to the Ten Commandments with Noah. And so I share that to say part of what came about as I was thinking and praying, and a couple rabbit hole moments. So I was listening to a Christian scientist this week, and he had shared that he had done a search across all the Bible apps that were available. He got permission, and he did this, and he researched all the apps, and the number one search across all the apps was stress and anxiety. And the number one verse that came up across all the apps, Bible Gateway, this app, that app, I'm not sponsored by anyone, so I don't know any of the other ones, was Philippians 4, 6 and 7. So, Kayla, that'll be our focus verse for today. We'll go through this verse and break it down and pull out a couple examples and a couple other verses to look at it. But this is a verse that we know well. And it's not surprising that in our day and time, and I so much appreciated the comments and the threads and the overlap of God preparing us in Sunday school and the discussion that we had, that Christ is the foundation of our salvation, that is the salvation of our reconciliation from sin, and that from that we live a life that can be blessed, that can be restored, that we can have protection, that we can have a walk in His presence. Yes, Philippians 4. Yeah, you got it. Yeah, 4 and 6. All right. Be careful for nothing, but in everything, by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto God. And verse 7, and the peace of God, which passeth all understanding, shall keep your hearts and minds through Jesus Christ. So I'm going to break this verse down in phrases as we go throughout, but I wanted to really give an outline. The outline that we're going to spend some time talking about is, one, the problem, and I think you'll be in agreement with me many times of some of the things that we'll share. The prescription. God gives us a prescription. Our eternal doctor gives us a path and a prescription for the problem. And then we'll look at the promise of God. And we'll finish with the practice. So the problem, the anxiety, the stress, the uncertainty of living in the world. All right? My rabbit hole brought me to this. The American Psychological Association, 2 years ago, found that over 60% of adults report feeling daily stress and anxiety. Okay, 60%. Brain scans showed that the part of the brain, the fear center, is flooded with cortisol, which is the stress hormone. So God has designed us that when we have fear and concern, something activates in our brain to tell our body we need to respond. And this fear, in the way that God made us, it's not a sin. Anxiety, stress, worrying, it's not a sin. It's a signal. And as we think about that, I can share a personal story right off the bat. This week I had a busy week. We had all of our things, but I'll take my shower, and that's my time to decompress and just, relax and then get ready for bed. And this, for some reason, my thoughts were racing of all the stuff I had to do the rest of the night, the stuff I had to do around the house, the stuff I had to do tomorrow morning around the house, the stuff I had to do for work. And I finished, and instead of being relaxed and ready for bed, I was like, my breath was getting short, and through different techniques and counseling, I just realized that I needed to breathe. And I just took a few deep breaths, a few more deep breaths, and it helped a little bit. But I took a few more deep breaths, and I trusted and I prayed with the breaths that God would give me peace, and that God would give me calm, and that I could remember that everything's going to get done. And just in that little example, that personal example, I can give you an example of Paul. As he's writing to these Philippians, these verses of encouragement, of reminder, that Paul had some level of anxiety as he was writing through this. So maybe he was documenting this as his way of coping with things. He was writing these letters from prison. He was imprisoned for preaching the gospel of Christ, the message of love and forgiveness in a new way. And in that moment, I'm sure there was uncertainty around his situation. There's some level of isolation in prison. There's some level of maybe even physical, emotional harm. Yet Paul speaks of peace, and he speaks of God. The other example that comes to mind is, you can imagine, for those of you that have been on a boat, I'm not a big boat person. I've dealt with some motion sickness. But imagine being on a boat and a storm comes. And the boat starts rocking and swaying, and the storm gets worse. Some on the boat are gripping the edge in panic, but there's one in the boat who's fast asleep. And it's Jesus. So while the apostles were concerned, stressed, worried, it wasn't sin, it was a signal. While Jesus, having the authority, having the power, is at rest. He is at calm. He is at control. So the problem is that this exists, and it's real, and it's good to talk about. That when we get these signals in our life, that we can rely on Jesus Christ, and we can turn to him. The prescription, we'll go to the verse, careful for nothing. So, Kayla, can you take us back one? Be careful for nothing. And to clarify and to break down this verse, careful means full of care. Careful means full of care. Paul is saying, don't be consumed by care. Instead, in everything, prayer and supplication with thanksgiving. So care is natural. Consumed by care is fully relying on Lucas. Consumed by care is that's the only thing I can fixate on. And the remedy, the prescription, is that we would pray, talk with God, supplicate with him, and take those moments for thanksgiving. 3 steps: pray, supplicate, and give thanks. And now I wish, for me and for your sake, that this was a one-time deal, that we would follow step 1, 2, and 3, that we would pray, we would talk honestly with God, we would share what's weighing on our hearts, we would supplicate, we would ask for his help, we would seek dependence on him, we would allow him to nourish us and feed us through his word and through his music and through his spirit, and we could give gratitude. We could give our spiritual focus to him, and then we would be set for life. Wouldn't that be great? But this is a process that we would repeat again and again to strengthen our spirit, to be an antidote to the concerns of the world. The 1 Peter, you don't have to pull this up, Kayla. 1 Peter 5-7 gives us a reminder, a simple, effective reminder. Casting all your cares on him because he cares for you. And I love when we can strip away all the thus and thou and this translation and that translation. Jesus cares for you. God cares for you. And because of that, we can put our cares on him. He cared for our soul so much that the plan of salvation was fulfilled through a blood sacrifice. He cared for our mind, our life, our walk so much that he said, I've got a Holy Spirit. That's the mind of the Father. It's not just good enough that I wipe this slate clean. I'm going to give him my Spirit that will reside in us, in you, and in me every day, that will speak to our mind, and speak to our heart, and give us a feeling that helps us through this life. The rabbit hole was deep, so bear with me. Harvard Medical School found in 2019 that daily prayer or meditation, quiet time, lowers heart rate and blood pressure, calming that part of the brain that releases the stress hormones, and is linked directly with positive decision making and the feeling of peace. God designed prayer and quiet, meditation and connection with him, not just to heal us spiritually, but to heal us physically and mentally. He's given us the simple reminder of pray, supplicate, and express gratitude and thanks. Praise him. I'm gonna keep marching forward to the promise. Kayla, go back to the verse, the peace of God, verse 7. The peace of God shall keep in your hearts and minds. Everyone say keep. The word keep in this is a Greek word, and it's a military word. The keep is the guard or the garrison. And I'm not an expert on ancient military, but I know this. The peace of God shall keep in your hearts and minds through Christ. That this is not based on circumstances that change. This is not based on the sense of the world. This is based on God's desire for you and I to have peace in him. That he has the power to guard, to protect. I'm not exactly sure what garrison means, but you're with me. To guard and protect our hearts and our minds. And you know Romans 5 says, or Romans 12, sorry. It says that our minds and hearts would be renewed and that we would be transformed through the renewing of our spirits. So not only does God want to protect and guard us, but he wants to make us new and help us grow and uplift us. And the prompt from Sunday school to now is our faith. Our faith is the key, that our belief, our ability to say, Lord, I trust you, even though I don't see what's ahead, that is depending in the promise. The promise is that God will protect us. He will provide for us. Even if we can't explain it, we can experience it. And that's the peace that passes understanding. The last part is the practice. And I shared an example from my life this past week. Shared an example that maybe Paul and the other apostles did as they journaled their experiences with Christ. Philippians 4:8 says, think on these things. Whatever things are true, honest, just, pure, and lovely. The path to having peace is that we would meditate, that we would think, that we would reflect and ponder, that we would testify and share the true things, the lovely things, the blessed things, the pure things of life. I referenced it so many times before my stepmom Karen had the stroke. One of Karen's gifts was just sharing with people, and her enthusiasm and energy was very clear around food. And if you got to spend any time with Karen, she was a wonderful person. But man, when she tried a new cheese and she liked it, you were going to try that cheese too. And she was going to be relentlessly positive. You have to try. It's so creamy. It's so smooth. It's so good. Here, she'll feed you. She'll put it in your mouth. That's the gospel. That's the gospel of the practice of finding something good and pure and true. Come experience it with me. Let me tell you about it. I'm so happy to see you today. I appreciate your comments in Sunday school. Thanks for bringing the donuts every Sunday. Between Sunday school and the main meeting, there's a miracle of donuts. They show up every time. I don't know how. I don't know who. But it's a lovely, it's so small, but it's so lovely. You know why? Because it gathers the saints. Because the fellowship begins. The conversation continues. The connections are happening. The practice. Whatsoever things are true, honest, just. It's hard. It's not impossible, but it's hard to have a peaceful heart with a cluttered mind. That's what my mind was doing this past week. But when I could refocus, when you can refocus, when we can take this time for a couple hours together on a Sunday morning and refocus. Mosiah 18:9 says, "Stand as witnesses of God at all times, in all things." All times, in all things. I'll say it one more time. All times. When you're interacting with a store clerk, when you're dealing with a stressful coworker, at all times, stand as a witness of God. At all times, and in all things. When we share our conversations or phone calls or texts, let's be a joy to interact with people. Let's be a blessing. I was continuing down the rabbit hole of spiritual peace. Start your day with 5 minutes of gratitude, Google said. Wow. Simple and effective. I'll take that. 5 minutes. Lord, thank you for my health. Thank you for my home. Now we create a pattern of our life, a practice. Write down the things that we are concerned about. We've got 2 books, thousands of pages of examples of people writing down and surrendering to God what their concerns were, writing down their praise, writing down God turning their concerns into victories. Let's do that in our life. Let's journal, let's document it. Speak peace. Complaining actually rewires our brain to complain more. Have you ever noticed that about someone who complains a lot? That they don't just complain a little bit, they complain a lot. Complaining makes our brain complain more. That we would speak peace in our home, that we would speak kindness and positivity in our relationships, that we would reduce a harsh tone and increase in encouragement. I took myself back to the water. Do I remember what it felt like to get out of the water of baptism and tell everyone, I'm so good. I'm so clean. I'm so happy. I made this change in my life. And now can I look at myself 20 years later and say, I want to be at my best. That I want to take that feeling of excitement and enthusiasm. And now, this is how good God is. Take that feeling from the water, that moment when we rose up from the chair, receiving the fullness of the Holy Ghost, and layer on it my experiences learned. Layer on top of it the lessons of dozens of Sunday schools and sermons. Layer on top of that life experiences, the tribulations and the difficulties that have made me more patient, a stronger character, as we read in Sunday school. Layer on that the resources that God has given me and you, financially, time-wise, that now we are becoming stronger soldiers in the army of God. Now we're becoming more complete spiritually and naturally to further His kingdom. That we would use our enthusiasm, our joy, our looking back on the past and looking forward to the future, saying, I'm not going to let anxiety hold me back anymore. I'm not going to let stress be my default. I'm not going to let it have a stronghold. I'm going to let God take the stronghold of my heart and my mind. That we would take that moment and realize that God is working and adding and helping and protecting every one of us. That true peace is a result of trusting on God, regardless of circumstance. And it's trusting Him in all times, in all things. That as we go together and in love with each other, that we would work our hardest to keep in prayer, to reduce the panic. That we would surrender control and give it to Him. That our faith would be something that we walk in every day in the presence of God. It's not that we have a shining light and a halo over our head. It's that we have a little bit more compassion. It's we have a little bit more love. We have a little bit more kindness. And God fills the gap with peace that passes understanding. God bless you. I hope this was uplifting and encouraging this morning.
I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but as I was sitting there and listening, I almost thought to myself, there's a roadmap, there's an approach, there's a picture that our brother painted for us today. And it's not really complicated, but unfortunately, this natural person that we are, boy, it complicates it. Because when all those things happen in life, it may not always be as easy to do these things. But it takes a consistent approach, is what I took from it. And many of us sometimes, we get away from our consistency and that approach because life gets so crazy and busy, and I didn't do this today, and I didn't get to that. And it starts to create something. And that word is anxiousness. Now, anxious, other than I think one verse, if I'm not mistaken, in the Book of Mormon, is not found anywhere. But it's definitely searched for, because I do it quite often too, and I go, oh, I'm trying to remember what's the verse about not being anxious, and if you search it, then where's the first verse that comes up? What our brother gave us in Philippians. And then the other one is 6th chapter of Matthew as well. So most would say that, if you think about being careful for nothing, another translation of that is, do not be anxious about anything. Well, what I thought interesting, and I kind of went down my own little rabbit hole, because I like to do the same thing as Brother Lucas, but as I was sitting there, I went, wow, it touched on all these things that I had looked up myself. First point was, it is not a call to recklessness. It's something that I searched. And I thought, isn't that interesting, as our brother was talking about this? Being careful for nothing doesn't mean that I just don't care about anything. I don't just worry about nothing, because I'll tell you right here, I'm not that person. I cannot do it. I'll say probably many of you sitting out there are much, much better at it than I am, meaning that you're able not to allow it to affect you as much. We're all a little bit different. Well, it's not mean that, cares of life, forget it, I'm just going to go on, do my thing, doesn't matter what happens. That's not what this is talking about. It's a call, and our brother, I'm going to reiterate this, I'm repainting the map for you, or the picture. A call to trust and prayer. Not to allow us to be distressed by those things that are happening. Trust and submission, he talked about as well. And I thought, wow, as I was reading through what I looked up, I said, man, he's hitting on every single point. This is pretty impressive. It's amazing. It's so that we make our requests known, right? And it's an approach to the Lord that we have confidence that he's going to do something. He's going to handle the matter. He's going to take care of it, however that may be. Now, we all could probably get up in a little while and testify and say, how often have I trusted, not knowing what may occur? I have confidence in the Lord, and in a way that he works it out is just beyond my comprehending, right? That peace passes what? My understanding. I can't even understand. Lord, how did you do this? How did you make this happen? And sometimes it seems so simple, and the Lord knows that. He knows each one of us. Well, then he talked about what are the results, right? What results happen? Well, the biggest result is not your peace, but God's peace. There is a big difference between what I think is peaceful versus having God's peace in me. That is a huge difference. And then a transformation occurs. And here it says a transformed heart. And what I thought interesting was not that all those things go away. Now, it wasn't until Jesus, when he was sleeping in the boat, right, he got up and he said, peace be still, that the peace occurred. But he was sleeping while the natural aspect was occurring. And I could probably go around the room. And how often does it just automatically go away, the issue that you may be experiencing? So what happens here? And I read this and I thought, wow, this is so interesting that this transformation, this peace, and it said here that it's a supernatural guard, Brother Lucas. And you said a garrison or something that, and should we guard ourselves or guard our heart? But this is what it went on to. It says it steadies the inner person, not just calms the external circumstances. I thought, wow, that's pretty impressive, because many times the external things that are happening, I have no control over. I can do nothing about them. But boy, I want to. I'm a fixer. I got to fix. Angela can tell you. I obsess to the point, can you just let it go? No. I'm just not that type of person. But those external things many times just don't automatically just go away, do they? But through this picture, through this roadmap, through these items that our brother went through point by point, they steady us when we allow the Lord to take over. That's the difference. Then I know I get to the point and I go, Lord, there's nothing more I can do. And I have to steady myself in the knowledge and understanding. God, take over. You have to. And sometimes those things take time. And then all of a sudden the peace comes. Sometimes the Lord is so good to us that in an instant, doesn't he just change it? Quicker than we can even imagine. Well, here there's an overview of this that I read here. And offering this solution. And the solution was those, I think, three things, and correct me if I'm wrong, Brother Lucas, that our brother pointed out to us. Instead of letting worries dominate our thoughts, present them to God in prayer, express your gratitude. And I thought, how beautiful. And trust him to provide, not my peace, God's peace, his peace. How beautiful that is. I would say, encourage each one of us, let's try to do a little bit better with this. Remember, as our brother said as well, what's different maybe? What's my approach that may have changed? And let me get back to where I once was, and the Lord can pull it all back together. Well, Christ also, and I'll just summarize this because I'm not going to read the entire 6th chapter of Matthew to you, but isn't it beautiful? If you think about breaking that chapter down, Christ tells us this is how you're supposed to pray. This is where you should store up your treasure. But then after he does that, he goes in and he says, you know what? Don't worry about these things of life. And I'm going to paraphrase it. The Lord knows Talks about the lilies of the field, that they were more beautiful than anything that even Solomon had. That he understands the cares of life. And he goes, can any of you, by just thinking about it, add 1 cubit to your stature? I'm like, that'd be nice. I like to be a little taller. But by just thinking about something, can we change exactly that? I'm talking a physical thing. Now, God could do that, but I can't. Many times in life, there's nothing more than I can do. It says God knows about it. If he takes care of all these beautiful things, look out the window of nature and his creation, how much more is he going to take care of us? Now, I know that's a lot of paraphrasing for Matthew 6, but that's the essence for me. That's the peace that passes all understanding. So may the Lord bless each one of us today. I've been uplifted, struggling with varying things myself, and sometimes many of us deal with things that are not just natural aspects that happen, physical things that we go through. These all can weigh on us. But the Lord understands, and he is there to uplift each and every one of us. So I'm encouraged today. I hope that you are as well. May the Lord bless you.